Thank you very much for rejoining after that extra long break to digest all of the academic findings from the research that we've done. I hope you're refreshed and ready for the next couple of sessions we have planned, starting with research to policy and practice. Just a reminder that there is a Q&A ability within the stream platform at the moment, and there's also a chat function if you want to say hello, if you're signing in from wherever you are. But yeah, if there's any questions that come up for Tony or Kerry through this session, please drop them in the Q&A. So our presenter in this session will be familiar to many of you at today's event. Tony Cunningham is Head of Research and Policy within the Education Department at the World Anti-Doping Agency. Since joining WADA in 2013, over a decade ago, Tony has led the development and implementation of WADA's social science research strategy and oversees the education policy institutions. Tony brings a strategic and evidence-based approach to promoting clean sport. His work supports global anti-doping education through research-driven insights and policy development. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome you, Tony, for this keynote presentation.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure as well to contribute to this fantastic research project and the dissemination of this. It's been fascinating to watch the results of this come true. And I think what I'm going to do is look at this from a research policy and practice perspective. This is a kind of term that is bandied around a lot, and it means different things to different people. And I think my slides are on screen now. Is that correct? And where I kind of go at this is to maybe complement what has happened or been presented a bit earlier, is when we think about this kind of interaction or this intersection between policy, practice, and research. I will look at it through the lens of this project to begin with and show where WADA has through trying to measure a different form of impact with the research, but through the monitoring of the co-compliance process. I'll take it then a wider look at WADA's social science research program that is now 20 years old this year, kind of what we have learned from that journey, and then where we're looking at going forward. And all of this, I think, through the idea of how can we work better together as practitioners, as policymakers, and as researchers. And that's the real interesting space that I'm exploring at the minute. But just to look and take things from a compliance perspective, but looking at impact. And impact, again, is another one of those words that means different things to different people. And as we've seen this morning, there's many different types of impact, and the impact that the ISC has had has been encouragingly very, very positive. But there is an additional element to what we look at, is that a lot of what was presented is what people's perceptions are of their programs, their self-reporting, their education plan, whether it was compliant or not. We then add another layer, is that what happens after the submission of the co-compliance questionnaire. And what we have done, or what I will present here, is from tiers 1 to 3, we had reviewed 176 co-compliance questionnaires, or 176 signatories in those tiers. That in itself has been a massive body of work for the education team and the wider WADA organization. And I think a lot of credit here has to go to the education team, because everyone in the team has really contributed to the review process. We have embedded a lot of robust processes and procedures to ensure consistency across all of the different plans. And that's really well coordinated by Kelsey Martin in the team. We have another 134 co-compliance questionnaires that have also been assessed for tier 4, but they're still going through the process right now. And after what we found is that with those 176 reviews, we have issued 900 corrective actions. And interestingly now is that process is always ongoing. So the vast majority of those corrective actions that have been issued, where we have reviewed and determined that maybe the aspects of the education program are not fully compliant with the international standard, and then we would, through the co-compliance center, issue corrective actions for this. So in a way, the code compliance process, we're talking about research impact. The code compliance process is probably is the biggest research enterprise that has been undertaken in anti-doping, and it's been quite amazing to kind of look through some of the data that's there. And maybe that's a starting point, is that it helps provide some context within the environment that we're all operating in the education space. So we managed to put a question in there for the code compliance questionnaire where we simply asked, how many athletes fall under your jurisdiction as a code signatory? And the answer at the top level is 100 million athletes are subject to the rules. And that breaks down about 75% or 75 million recreational athletes, about 24 million national level athletes, and about 1 to 1.5 million international level athletes, or the more elite athletes. And then when you add in all of their athlete support personnel and everything like that, you're really talking about of the global population, about 1.5% to 2% of everyone in the world are subject to the World Anti-Doping Code. And that kind of sets the context, and that I think that really underlines what's important, because one of the key things that was coming through the research is this idea of the compliance mindset. And if we have 100 million athletes, and we can safely say that the vast majority of them have not been educated in some way, of course, the danger and the risk is that they become walking accidents waiting to happen, because we know that anti-doping is getting more complex as we move forward. So that's why when we come back and we look at what are the key things that we have reviewed, and where have people perceived that they have been compliant, and maybe after review, this kind of drops down a bit. So we know that one of the critical things that you have to do for the international standard is make sure that you have all of the topics and the 11 topics that are in the international standard and in the code on your website. So that drops to about 43% of our stakeholders or signatories would be fully compliant based on the first review. On the education plan, that drops to 35%. And then in the evaluation report, again, it drops to 22%. So only 1 in 5 of those signatories had a fully compliant evaluation report. And that kind of really reflects what has been borne out and presented earlier today. And that's where the education team will identify specifically where are the areas that you need to correct that, give direction, what are the articles that you're not compliant with, and where in the guidelines that you can address these issues. So then where we're at the minute at the current status, and this is, I think we're looking at the impact of the compliance process, is that now we're seeing 100% of all of those signatories now have a website with all of the required information. We're at 85% of education plans now fully compliant, and amazingly, 84% of the evaluation reports are now compliant. A lot of there's still a gap. We're at the tail end of the tier 3, the review process for that. So we will expect this to go up significantly more. And we're, of course, always aiming to get 100% of people, their plans and the evaluation reports in line with the standard. So then taking a step back and then looking at where this kind of fits, because I think that's clear, is that research is a more expansive concept. What I just presented is a beginning of how we can look at how policymakers, researchers, and practitioners can all interact. And in a way, research is not just something that happens in a university. All of the data and all the information is there, and it's how we grapple and how we use that and how we can use it to inform programs. But when we look back at what a social science research program was in 2005, when there was no social science research happening, the main aim was simply just to get it happening, encourage social science research, and to provide an evidence base for information. So during that time, we have invested $5.5 million, 154 projects, and we've had over 1,000 applications in that time. That, I don't know whether that seems impressive to people or not. Like $5.5 million is obviously a significant investment. But on the natural science side, they have over $100 million of investment. So for every dollar that's invested in social science research, $20 is invested in natural science. So it's, I think, something that we will need to look at and try and increase resources that we have in this space. But then thinking about what is the impact that all of that has had. And I guess why we're focused on impact and why we have built in this project for the implementation of the ISC is because we want to see what makes a difference. With the social science research program, we're kind of wrestling with this concept now is what is impact? So we're looking at it in different ways. So there's concept impact, which is around the knowledge. What is the knowledge base and information that it is contributing to this space? So we know that social science research has evolved the nuance of how we think about anti-doping. It's not just a simple black or white situation anymore. We know that it's a wicked problem, that it's not easy. And we know that it has helped shift the narrative as well in understanding what clean sport is and moving from this idea of support from going from catch and punish to more support and prevent. And that's the prevention mindset that Amanda was talking about earlier. Then when we look at impact, we're seeing already as well, like with the international standard, we're seeing as well that monitoring and evaluation being embedded, the prevention model that is there in the code as well. And then another example, like as how the research has informed, say, our whistleblowing policy over the years. And then instrumental impact is more how that translates into practice, something that, again, is difficult to trace. But we know we have a better understanding of doping behavior, athlete vulnerability. We know that values-based education can contribute, and we know that how important it is to tailor. So all of that evidence base has informed how programs are being implemented. But as you can see, we're kind of still wrestling with how do we document that? How do we record that? And that's something that is important. So in 2020, we were able to maybe think and take a more strategic look with the development of a standalone education department and Amanda coming on board as the director. And what we noticed then is that when we looked at where the funding was going, is that you can clearly see there's an imbalance there with 2/3 of funding going to Europe over the preceding 15 years. So we did put in some initiatives and processes to ensure that there is a better spread of funding throughout, and that's something that I think we're very proud of during the last 4 years is trying to get new researchers into this space. We also noticed this from the discipline side of things. So when you look at 2005 to 2020, we see a lot of psychology projects for that, and then in the last 4 years, we see a better spread across that. And just a note, just in case people are thinking, well, medicine and physiotherapy isn't really a social science. This is social science happening within these disciplines. So we're getting to understand more about sport physicians, physiotherapists, sport pharmacists. So that's the type of research that's been happening there. And again, that has helped improve and move on our understanding. So going from, I think Martin was saying it earlier, like aspirational objectives of just doing social science research or providing an evidence base. The last 4 years has been a bit more purposeful, where we have targeted outputs. And thankfully, we have achieved 94% of those during that strategy. We doubled the number of projects that we funded. Encouragingly, we're seeing more involvement of anti-doping organizations. And we have a database that we're now making all of our research more accessible. We have a symposium that took place in 2024, which was fantastic. And then other things where we have publications on athlete vulnerabilities, and we also have developed a network of funders operating in this space as well, the collaboration platform. So again, lots of activity happening, and you can see all the different initiatives there on our strategic map that is there. And lots of progress, I think, in those 4 years. So what I've learned is that expertise really is everywhere there. This is the picture from the SSR Symposium in Nice, hosted by Université de Côte d'Azur. There is a community of academics, as we've seen this morning, that really are passionate about anti-doping and clean sport. But we still have a gap between what the evidence is and how that translates into practice and policy. And this event is a good example of how we try and address that. But dissemination is still challenging, and resources is still going to be there. We see also this time frame as well between when a research project starts and the need to get the findings into policymakers and practitioners' hands more quickly. So where we're going is kind of looking into this space around policy, practice, and research is this bit in the middle. A lot of time we talk about translating research into practice or policy. But there's also just as important to translate practice into research. That, I think, helps to make it a lot more meaningful. And likewise, as we're seeing with this project, is being aware of what the policy is and how that can inform the research. That is the nub of what this is. But this is challenging, this intersection between all of these people with all of the different backgrounds, different countries, cultures, everything like that. It is definitely not easy, but it's something that when we look forward now to where we're going the next few years, we have very strategic and purposeful outputs. So this will be our 2025 to 2029 social science research strategy. And this was approved by our executive committee earlier this year, and we will be publishing it before the end of the year, and so that we can outline exactly where we're going. What are our priorities in terms of trying to increase capacity? Amanda mentioned earlier on the importance of unintentional doping, trying to get more sophisticated understanding of athletes and their vulnerabilities, ensuring that they know what to do and to help them how to do that. And that's where the practitioners and the ADOs really come in. And then looking to build the capacity of academics as well. We need to provide a bridge for them to more directly contribute to the anti-doping community. And Clean Sport Academies is one project that we'll be looking to do that, which is building a network of universities to contribute. So that was a quick run through where we're coming from and trying to unpack where we're seeing research, where we've come from, the importance of research to WADA, and where we're looking to go in the future. So I'm happy to take any questions, Andy, and if we don't get to any questions, I know I'll be on a panel later on. We will be able to come back to that as well.
Thank you very much, Tony. Really appreciate that presentation. And it never ceases to amaze me the amount of work that you and your education team do across so many different facets. The work you do with the education plans and the evaluation reports, and then into social science research. It's phenomenal that what you achieve with such a small team. And it's also fascinating to see where we've come from 2005, where we're simply just encouraging social science research. And now we're in the space where we are now, where we have still work to do. And I'm interested to know from you, you highlighted for every $1 of social science research, we have $20 in the natural sciences. When you're faced with a question from our natural science colleagues or those at WADA about why should social science research be increased in funding, and why is it important to WADA's mission and strategy, how would you answer that?
Well, I think we're seeing today, and the importance of that is when social science research is essentially giving us the evidence to say, well, not only where we should be going, but how effective we have been in the past, and building research into programs, I think is really essential. For me, research is essentially like a compass. And what we've seen in the past is that if we think about how we used to drive and try and get to a destination, we're on a journey, is that you might have to stop and ask for directions for someone to say, where do we go? And that's kind of been the approach, like say for the first 15 years, it's useful. It might help you get to where, but it's maybe not as efficient, because we're stopping to asking researchers, how are we doing? Are we going in the right direction? To now, I think where we're seeing the evolution is maybe we have a map now, and we're able to maybe guide ourselves a little bit. We have seen that development in the last 4 years. And when I think about where we're going now, I think the idea is that we're kind of building in a GPS and being more smart and clever about that. The research is kind of embedded, or it's baked into the system from the beginning. And that's where I think the importance of having social science researchers be more wedded to anti-doping organizations. There is, of course, good opportunities to be independent of anti-doping organizations as well. That has its use, but having those links, I think, is really, really useful.
Well, thank you very much for that, Tony. And it's really interesting having that map now, that GPS of where we're going and those future directions. I suppose, how can stakeholders, not just researchers, but how can wider stakeholders better collaborate to ensure that research is both relevant and actionable?
Start by having a conversation. And that's always the best way, is to say, where our needs are, who are the people in this area. I connect people all the time when people say we have an issue with, say, whereabouts. Is there anyone that's working in this area? And I would connect them for that. Or we want to understand more about clean sport behaviors or whatever it is. But there's lots of people that are willing to participate. So start by sending an email or picking up the phone if that's how you prefer, and just start having that dialogue about how people can work effectively together.
I suppose, conscious of time, what would be the key messages that you would want the audience to take away regarding the role of social science in anti-doping education?
That it very much has a role, and I know it's difficult for people to engage with it, particularly. And one of the criticisms of, like, say, from practitioners to the academic side is that I'm not going to read something that's behind a paywall and in very academic language. So that's breaking down those barriers, I think, is the first part, and that's where just having a conversation with someone, I think, really helps. And that's when we're talking about a community. We have an amazing education community that is driven where we've gotten to from the last 15 years. Now it's time for the academics to come in and to join that community in a more meaningful way, I think.
Yeah, and as I suppose one of those academics involved in this community, it should be said that the education conference and the social science research symposium last year was a phenomenal opportunity to have those conversations, and speaking not just with researchers but anti-doping practitioners, with athletes and WADA staff as well. Tony, thank you so much for your time. I know we've be inviting you back onto the panel later into today, but I'm now going to move over to our second keynote presentation, which is on the summary of the changes to the ISE. So thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Andy. I'll see you later.